So today I will be talking about Talkable fraud settings. When talking about Talkable fraud settings, there's kind of a few things that we can look at. We can look at how the offer is structured and basically see, are we incentivizing friends to self-refer in order to get the friend coupon code? The other thing we can look at is the actual settings that are built into our campaign. This session today is just going to focus on those actual settings that are within the Talkable admin portal. When you select menu, you select fraud settings, you're being taken to this page. And this page essentially defines the campaign rules. So if you have a floating widget campaign, a post-purchase campaign, an invite campaign, all running on your site, all of the fraud settings that you select here will be translated into those individual campaigns. So you don't need to make any updates to the individual campaigns, just to these main settings. So you'll see there's a few of these different fraud profiles here that you can pre-select. I usually tell customers when they're first starting to work with Talkable, either to select a very high fraud profile or select something pretty loose. All of these are super easy and simple to update, so you can start to see your customers' behavior and adjust from there. So typically, if you're more risk averse, you want to make sure that fraud is not an issue when you first launch, I would recommend selecting high. However, if you're maybe a new business and you want to get as many new customers as possible, and that's your main objective, then I would recommend actually selecting it to be lower. What typically happens is, even though you may see that a few customers will self-refer, some of these customers may be brand new to your business. So if you're okay with new customers coming in using that friend discount code, maybe it's not a legitimate referral in a sense that they did not refer somebody else. But if they're a new customer to the brand and you're okay with them, self-referring to get that 15% off code, then it may be smart to actually select low. Or the other option is to be able to create some sort of lower self-referral offer, but we'll get back to that later. So in the meantime, let's pretend you are a little bit more on the risk-averse side, and let's go ahead and select high. I'll walk you through then kind of what each of these settings mean and how you can configure them or change them in the future. So by default, with the high fraud profile, you'll be blocking a matching cookie on friend purchase. So what does that mean? Essentially, it means that if I am a friend browsing on a website, I open up that floating widget, I click on it, I copy the link. If I copy that share link and then I open a new tab in the same browser, that link should automatically fire a self-referral screen. So when we're blocking that advocate here and when we're blocking it on the friend side as well, that essentially means that instead of going to a success claim page where I'd get a coupon code, I'll be taken to a self-referral screen. The next one is similar email match. So similar email match essentially means that if summer@talkable.com shares with summer.lindman@gmail.com, that I'm going to be blocked on both the friend and the advocate side. So what that means is that if Summer@Talkable does the sharing with summer.lindman@gmail.com, if I block it on the friend side, when summer.lindman@gmail.com is entered onto the claim page, I'll see that we're sorry, this offer is intended to be used on your friends and not for your own purchase. If, however, let's say I skip it on the friend side, summer.lindman@gmail.com will be able to claim the coupon code successfully, but when she goes to make a purchase, summer@talkable.com will not be sent an advocate reward if this is blocked. So again, we typically recommend to block it on both sides. The false positive cases here will be if a husband and wife are sharing and they have similar email addresses with the same last name, or if sdlindman@gmail.com, which is my personal email address, shares with my mother, jlindman@msn.com, that's going to be blocked because that email is too similar. So something to think about if you have a lot of maybe sisters or husband and wives sharing and you expect that's going to happen quite frequently, you may want to loosen those settings. Next is matching shipping address. Before toggling this on or off, you'll want to make sure that shipping address is one of the variables being passed through the integration. By default, if you're a Shopify customer, this will always be the case. However, if you have a custom platform, you may want to check with your developer to identify whether or not this is being passed in the integration. If it is, what it essentially means is that once I refer a friend, that friend makes the purchase, we'll see their shipping address that they've used or shipped their item to, and we can cross-check that back with the advocate. So if the advocate's an existing customer, and we already have the shipping address saved for that advocate, we'll be able to block them if we see that that's the same. Again, false positives can occur here if you have roommates referring each other, or you have husband and wives referring each other, so those could be the cases there. Next is matching by combination of IP address and user agent. So essentially what this means is that we're going to be looking at the IP address on the account. We're also going to be looking at the device that they're using, and we want to see if those two things in combination are the same. The reason we want to typically not just look at IP address only, or only use this in very strict cases, is because there's a lot of successful referrals, coworkers referring each other or university students referring each other, where they'll be operating on the same IP address, but they'll have different devices. So I usually always recommend to block matching by a combination of IP address and user agent on both the advocate and the friend side, but to go ahead and skip matching by IP address only. The only time I would recommend turning this on is if you do see that fraud is continuing to be an issue on your account, and you really want to crack down on it, then you can turn this on as kind of a last resort. The last is friend and advocate refer each other. This is something that we call cross-referral here at Talkable, and essentially what that means is if I am an advocate and I share with my friend Stacy, and if Stacy signs up as an advocate as well and shares with me as a friend, that in those cases we're both not getting the friend reward and the advocate reward. So you can be a little looser and maybe unblock it on the friend side so that both Stacy and I can take advantage of the 20% friend discount, but block it on the advocate side so that if we're referring each other, we're both new customers to the brand and we both make a successful purchase, that we both then also don't get the advocate reward on top of that. So again, the reason for this is obviously referral is meant to kind of be a viral effect, so that if I share with Stacy, Stacy shares with, her friend Susan, and on it goes. And so we want to incentivize that behavior as opposed to people just sharing with each other. So the next piece of this that I'll briefly talk about is referrals approval. So we have two choices here, manual and automatic. A manual referral essentially means that you need to dedicate someone on your team to look through the referrals manually, daily or once a week, and approve them. The only cases where I would recommend this would be if perhaps you're not anticipating a high number of referrals, perhaps if you're a luxury company or a high AOV product, where you think that the referral count might be quite low and you'd prefer to monitor it on a regular basis, especially if you then have a high offer associated with that. For example, if we work with a company that has a $2,000 single product and they're giving away a $500 Amazon gift card, that's a very high value incentive. So we want to be extra careful to make sure that there's no sort of fraudulent or bad activity going on. So therefore, I'd recommend using manual approval. For all other brands, I would typically recommend using automatic. The only consideration here is if you have a high number of returns, and may want to increase the number of days that you approve that referral in to be in line with your return policy. So let's say, for example, that you have a 14-day return policy. You may want to make this automatic approval then 15 days so that you can go back in or have somebody on your team double check before these referrals get approved, that somebody hasn't returned the item. If this is a really big concern for you, then I would recommend going to docs.talkable.com and looking at our returns API. What this would do is allow your brand to automatically let us know when a customer has returned a product, and therefore we'll be able to see, do they have a referral associated with that, and we won't reward the advocate if the friend did return the purchase within that return policy window. All right, next thing is just the additional settings here. So again, because we have the high fraud profile turned on, you'll see that this is automatically toggled to yes. So what does this mean? Wait 1 minute after advocate shares to show friend offer. So essentially, if I'm sharing with my friend, let's say via link, and I Slack the link to them, if my friend clicks on that within the first 60 seconds, she'll actually see a self-referral screen. The reason behind this is if somebody's trying to game the system and self-refer, typically they are going to try to click on their own link within 60 seconds because they're trying to do this very quickly. So they might share a friend share email with their personal email address and then go and click on that immediately to get the coupon code. So the reason for 60 seconds is to try and deter that behavior. However, again, in positive cases, when I actually am slacking my coworker and I'm like, hey, check out this referral link, and they click on it right away, it will be a negative experience for them because they will see the self-referral screen instead of a successful coupon code. We don't typically message this to customers because we don't want to, open up the back end and show them kind of how the gears work. So instead, we do just present the self-referral screen. Again, I would usually recommend keeping this off unless fraud becomes a major concern and we see that there are a lot of people clicking on their own share links immediately, and we can always pull a report regarding the timing of that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off for the purposes of today's demo. The next is limiting the number of advocate referral incentive rewards each advocate can get. So what does this mean? This basically means that if an advocate has posted their share link, let's say on Retail Me Not, they can do that, but we would limit the number of advocate rewards that they could get for that. So let's say they post it, they get 100 referrals right away. Well, if we've limited this to 30, that means that they're only going to get paid out for 30 of those referrals. Now, on that 31st referral within 30 days, they're not going to receive a notification. All that's going to happen is they will no longer be sent advocate reward paid emails. The same is for the in total number. Again, let's say we do keep this at 1,000. I usually recommend taking it down to around 100, depending on what your reward is. And after that 100 referral, basically they will no longer receive advocate reward paid emails. The next is limit the number of friend incentive rewards distributed to a single IP address. So the thinking behind this is if you do have kind of a one gamer who's going to be posting their link somewhere or sharing it with amongst a group of friends, maybe an office or a university again, where they're all trying to game the system, we can limit the number of friend incentives that are given out to that single IP address. So basically we're trying to make sure that somebody's not either creating new advocate accounts or getting a group together to try and make sure that they can kind of max out the number of coupon codes given to friends. So I do recommend setting a limit of this in 7 days, usually around 20 or 30. It should not exceed that, especially in a 7-day window. And then lastly, limit the number of friend incentive rewards that can be issued from a single advocate offer. So basically this would be if you have an advocate who again has posted maybe their share link on Retail Me Not, how many times are you comfortable with somebody clicking and claiming that offer before we stop giving out friend coupon codes? So again, in this case, we may recommend 20 or 30 because while I'm talking about kind of a fraudulent case of them putting it on Retail Me Not, there's also good cases where let's say you have a social influencer posting on their blog or you just have a really strong advocate who shared a lot with their friends or has a very active, engaged Facebook community. You may see that they have 20, 30, 40 even friends who are actually clicking on it and are good intentioned brand new customers to the brand. So we still want to leave a wide enough limit open so that all of those friends can claim. And this is in total. So, I think keeping this at 100 to start is good. And again, as I mentioned previously, all of these can be changed in an instant. All you'll have to do is go back to this page, update the number, and the changes will be saved and reflected in your account instantly. So let's say you have somebody then who reached the limit of 100 and you come back in here and you're like, I want to increase it. That will mean that then going forward, they'll get new rewards. It won't backfill any unfulfilled rewards. So for instance, let's say you have an advocate, you have the 100 in total, and they've reached 150 referrals, but you haven't changed the setting yet. So if you log in here now and you're like, okay, we want to start paying out that advocate, you can increase this up to like 200 or 300, but those 50 referrals that they earned credit for are not going to be back paid. Instead, you'll have to either issue new manual rewards for all 50 of those, or what I would typically recommend is to provide them with one single-use coupon code, for instance, for all of those rewards in total, or a gift card, or of course work it out with that power user advocate. And that's it for the fraud settings. So again, all of those are located here in the menu under fraud settings, can be completely configurable and customizable. We can't change these on a campaign basis, and we also cannot configure kind of these settings in terms of 30 days, 7 days, or in total. Those are set in their platform-wide rules. Thank you so much for joining me today, and looking forward to talking to you all more about fraud settings in the future.